JD's very smart to go on with Margaret Brennan, because some people said, why is he going to CBS? It's the enemy. Look what they did to him in the vice presidential debate. And I thought, no, he's very smart because she's adversarial. She's going to try to punch him, but she's nowhere near his intellectual equal. So he knows he can just slice and dice her with ease and do it as behaving as a gentleman, but leave everybody with the same impression, which is she is no match for him. Her arguments are no match for his. Here's Thought 13.
There are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand
concern
by it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's
are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted, and many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted, and because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Right on. I don't really care, Margaret. He's right.
Well, he does it such a gentleman. I mean, finally the exasperation when they're just going to continue on and continue on and continue on, all of them. And I think this is why they've lost the backing of the American people. It's why the ratings are a disaster, why the cost of these things, they're going through and cutting everybody's salary. The salaries are outrageous in the first place, cutting salaries. You see right there in JD, he makes an argument, puts the facts out, it just continues on. I mean, it's not an interview, it's a debate, right? And finally he just says, look, I don't care and the American people don't care. Next question, which I think is great.
Who cares? Like, if this guy who he was referencing, his name is 27-year-old Nasir Ahmad Tahedi, and per court documents, he planned to liquidate his assets, repatriate his family to Afghanistan, purchase assault rifles, and stage a violent attack on Election Day. He entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa on September 9th, 2021, days after Biden's catastrophic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Who that had a family member die in this planned violent attack on Election Day would care when he was radicalized? Why was he here? It wasn't lawful. He needed to go. He wasn't vetted. That's the point that he was making. And you times that by 20 million. So here's another piece, because the birthright citizenship has made has ruffled a lot of feathers, even on the Republican side, because Trump, notwithstanding what's written in the Constitution, is saying he's getting rid of it. And there is a legal argument to be made there. Trust me, I researched it in depth before I sat with Trump in September of 23, because I went into it saying this is a preposterous proposal. It's in the Constitution. You can't withdraw it. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized very smart legal scholars actually have made the credible argument that the Constitution is not as clear as its defenders argue, and you can get rid of birthright citizenship. It's because of this clause that means you have to be born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And there's a question there. Anyway, the media will not allow for any of that possibility, nuance, or other legal arguments. Margaret Brennan brought that up too with JD Vance, and here's how that went.
Temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children shouldn't become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by...
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers, but just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
By the way, it wasn't founded by illegal immigrants, and we don't have to keep the door open to more and more criminals because of what happened 250 years ago, Steve. It's amazing. Is that stupidity on her part or just liberal bias?
I think it's just laziness. I think they've controlled the apparatus for so long. I mean, you see this, you know these people. They've gotten lazy. That's one of the reasons they were caught by surprise on 5 November. One of the reasons that MSNBC's ratings dropped by 2/3 is that they lied to their audience. Their problem is credibility with their audience. Half of that audience is never coming back because they felt they were lied to all the way up until Pennsylvania was called. And even that night on the broadcast, I've gone back and studied the arc of the broadcast. They lied to their people. They all thought Kamala Harris, it was a historic night. Kamala Harris, that's where they had the huge crowd at Howard University. These people lied to people. And then later said, well, we actually knew the polling wasn't that great toward the end. They outright lie, and they will lie because they control every institution. They control the institutional power in the country, and they got very lazy. They never thought a startup group like MAGA, these kind of populist nationalists with no money and really no institutional power, could get in back of someone like President Trump. Is the reason they treated Trump so badly. Remember the felonies that he was charged with just on insurrection and J6 would left him in prison for 300 years. They wanted him to die in prison. Until you embrace that fact that they wanted him to die in prison, a man that look what's happened the last 7 days. I mean, when he went to Notre Dame Cathedral, he looked like Charlemagne walking in there. He is now on the world stage as the most powerful individual and really driving all the action, right, of everything the American government's doing in every different aspect, like 30 different verticals simultaneously. He's the most powerful, president, I think, for even more so than Reagan. I think you got to go back to FDR, and I put him in the category with General Washington and actual Abraham Lincoln as the age of Trump and what he's doing here. They wanted him to die in prison. Until you understand that, they never thought we were coming back. That's why, Jay Monahan could lie at Davos on the stage, says, well, we never debanked anybody. I go, what are you talking about? We were all banked. Our credit cards were taken. We were debanked. The insurance policies were canceled because they never thought we would be back in 1 billion years. They said this at Davos. Graham Allison said beforehand, he gave on one of these panels before Trump came, he said, this guy was dead. And he says, I mean, dead. He resurrected himself and his movement resurrected. He says, Graham Allison said, we sat here and mocked those guys for the last 4 years. They never thought we were coming back. And now that's why it has to be, I think you said at the beginning, all pedal, no brake. We only have so much time to get all this done and to seize institutional power. And that's why I think people got to be working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day to make it happen. And all the different shows have to back us up. The difference we have this time is like the 12 or 15 most powerful people in the administration last time in the White House are all on the outside, right? We're all on the outside, sitting there supporting the president every day with that outside effort, that outside push that you need to make sure that, like you've just done here, to break it down to the American people. And it's more than just a conservative audience. Now you're seeing more and more people saying, well, I want to find out about this. And they like what they hear. We're about to flip California. I've lived out in California, in Southern California, for 20 or 30 years. I'm very familiar with property in Pacific Palisades. Let's say that. And those people out there are starting to flip because they realize all the policies they supported for so many years really were the predicate for how this could happen. And now they're seeing the nightmare of Bass and Newsom and just this blob that won't let them get on with their lives. And they're saying we had enough of it. Trump comes out and has done more in 24 hours than all these guys did. So we're in a unique moment in American history. We're now a much broader, I say that MAGA and the MAGA beliefs are 2/3 of 70% of the country. It's like 1932. We can have an inflection point in this country and essentially govern for 50 years if we take immediate action on what needs to be done. We stay decent and empathetic, but we take action and we're relentless about that action.
We continue to face uncertainty when it comes to the economy, with a perfect storm brewing as Social Security and Medicare hit a breaking point, as the largest generation is hitting retirement. A smaller workforce means a smaller tax base. You pair that with our growing national debt and rising cost of living, and we could have a big problem. So, what are you doing now to protect your family for the future? Gold can be a safe haven in hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold will help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and it doesn't cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Protect your future today by texting MK to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold and a copy of The Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. No obligation, just information. Birch Gold has earned the trust of countless Americans looking to safeguard their savings. Text MK to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.